The Beer O'Clock Show with Steve and Mark. Episode 6, Bengal Lancer. Hello and welcome to Beer O'Clock Show. It's Beer O'Clock. This is episode number 6. My name is Mark, and joining me, all the way from a county that I couldn't find a fun fact for in time for tonight's show, Essex, it's Steve. G'day, Steve.
Good evening, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Every week we pick a particular beer. Steve teaches me, an ex-lager drinker, how to taste it. What I should be tasting for, all the various little, I don't know, hoppy, malty, whatevery bits of the beer.
I think we call them ingredients.
I'm talking about the taste sensations.
Oh, sorry.
This week's selection is Bengal Lancer from the Fullers Brewery, near my neck of the woods in Chiswick. But before we get to that, we have some little bits of discussion to get through first. Namely, what beers we've had in the past week. I'll get going first because it's a very short list. I've managed to...
It didn't look like a short list on Twitter at the weekend, mate, to be honest.
No, I've gone through 3 beers since we last spoke. Or at least that I can remember. 2 of them being the same, which is Golden Glory from Badgers, which was absolutely beautiful. The first one I cracked open while I was editing the last episode, and the peachiness in it kind of almost knocked me off my seat. It was a warm day anyway, so it was the perfect selection. I didn't realise it was a peachy beer despite having peachy on the label. I just thought, I'll try this. It must be a golden ale. Whatever that is. So, that knocked me off. It was gorgeous.
It is a nice beer, that one.
Yeah. I had another one on the... Yeah, and had another one on the weekend where I didn't taste the peachiness as much, but like I said to you on Twitter, I think it's because I was expecting it. But the peach was still really nice. Mm-hmm. And one I had last night, which is one that I've seen reviewed elsewhere and that I've been really wanting to try, and which my wife found for me in a Tesco's up in Suffolk, was the double chocolate stout from Young's. And not so chocolatey, actually. It's coffee in beer. It was a coffee beer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. When I cracked it open and I could smell the chocolate from the glass, but tasting it was just like 5 shots of espresso in a pint of beer.
Brilliant.
But, still very nice. Towards the end, it was like really, really bitter coffee. But, you're getting the dregs from the bottle there.
Mm-hmm.
He says, like he knows what he's talking about. But, yeah, the first half I really enjoyed. The second half I kind of struggled with. But, like Steve, I'm getting used to the bitterness in these drinks. So those are my rounds. What have you managed to get through? Because you were away for a wee while.
Yeah, I've actually had quite a lot since the last episode. The ones that probably stand out as being surprising. I tried a bottle of Guinness, but their foreign extra stout brew, and it was remarkably unstout-like. I think I coined it as being more of a dark black beer and having a more beery flavour than a stouty flavour. But it was really that was, again, you could really taste sort of like the roasted malts and barley in it, and had quite a strong flavour. But it was quite an enjoyable beer. And I was quite surprised actually, because I was expecting more of the typical Guinness taste. But that was quite tasty.
So which one was that again? The Guinness.
It's Guinness. It's called Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, and it comes in a bottle. It's quite a small bottle. I think I picked it up from an Asda's close to the campsite where we were staying.
Okay.
But like I said, it also appears on that that top 50 beers to try list that the Independent put out a few weeks ago.
Right, yeah.
Which was probably why I was drawn towards it. And I think they said in the review it's probably the closest you'll get to the original taste of Guinness if you were drinking it direct from the brewery. sort of thing. But no, it's quite surprising, really, and I quite enjoyed it. Certainly be something I'll try again. I also tried, finally managed to locate some of the Otter Brewery ales in my local garden centre of all places. so I picked up an Otter Head and an Otter Bright. The head being more of a dark ruby beer, and the bright, as it may suggest, looking more like a lager and actually tasting more like a lager as well. And after reading the bottle, the reasoning behind that was because they actually used lager malts for it rather than your traditional beer malts. So those two were quite nice. And then similar to yourself as well, I also had a Dark Star Brewery bottle of what was plainly called Espresso Beer, which, so no surprises there, but it was very much marketed as a black beer, again with the dark roasted barley malts in it, and also infused with freshly ground Arabica coffee beans in it as well. So again, a very, very strong coffee taste. It was like drinking an alcoholic cup of coffee. It was absolutely beautiful. I've been after trying a coffee beer for a while now, so I was quite pleased that I finally found one and gave it a go. And that was a particularly nice one. I'd certainly drink that again. I don't think you could drink too many of them in one go.
No.
But it was a nice beer. And then also probably the last one to mention was I tried the Brains Barry Island IPA in a bottle, having won a crate of it from the Great British Beer Festival. That arrived after I got back off my holiday, and I got stuck into that, and that was absolutely gorgeous out of a bottle. Just really smooth, really hoppy, really strong flavours to it, and that was most enjoyable.
Yeah, I saw you tucking into a couple of those.
Yeah.
You said the first one didn't even touch the sides, you said.
No, not at all. I was, it was the first, we got back from camping on the Thursday, and then spent the Friday just tidying up and what have you, and it was quite a warm day, and they turned up on the Friday morning, and it was literally, I couldn't wait for them to chill and get to the evening, and that first one was probably one of the nicest first pints I've ever had.
For me, being a new beer drinker, you wouldn't think it at the moment looking in my spare room, because I cleared out a shelf from our bookshelf, which is quite a deep bookshelf, and I've currently got, just on that shelf, I've got about 20 bottles of different types of beer.
Brilliant.
When we were up in Suffolk, had a bit of a haul in the local Sainsbury's up there. Actually, it was the Sainsbury's in Bury St Edmunds that we went to. And then later on in the day, my wife went out with her dad to go and get some bits for the Sunday dinner. And she walked down the beer aisle, like a good wife she is, and came back with a plastic bag full of 6 other beers. One of which I already had 2 of, which was the Punk IPA.
Right, yeah.
At the Sainsbury's, I got what's called a Badger's set, which is a case of 4 different types of Badger's beer. What else did she get me? She got me the double chocolate stout from Young's. And there's other bits like there's one called Inferno, which must be a smaller brewery. And there's a few other little funny bits that I got from Sainsbury's as well as some extra Badgers. So I'm well prepared for the rest of the year. considering I get through maybe 2 or 3 bottles a week, then this should last me, because I already had about 6 bottles of beer in the fridge that I've collected over the last few weeks in preparation for eventually reviewing them on this. But yeah, I'm well stocked at the moment.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
I've had to do something similar, because I was keeping all of mine in the shed. And then I suddenly realised that actually they were gaining a little bit of condensation in the bottles where the shed's warm,
right?
And I was like, well, I'm no expert, but that can't be good. So they need to come out of the shed. So I had to buy a box that can live in the garden that is essentially an outdoor fridge now. So all of my beers currently reside in a plastic box with a lid just outside the back door, and then they come in and get chilled just before being drunk now.
Yeah, I have been thinking about getting a little bar fridge for our spare room, but I think this shelf holds an adequate amount of bottles, so I'll just chuck them in the fridge when I need something a bit cooler.
You sound like you're one step away from actually saying, you know what, I'm turning the spare room into a bar.
Yeah, put the bed up, put the mattress away, and just set up some pumps. Yeah, it's only a matter of time, mate. It's only a matter of time.
I've been trying all my life, mate, to convince my wife that I need a bar, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
When my wife was growing up, her family had a bar underneath the steps in their flat. It's only a small council flat.
Brilliant.
But they had a proper bar set up with the spirits bottles and, the whole shebang. So,
that is hardcore.
Yeah, that was all torn down by the time I came on the scene, unfortunately. But never mind. Anyway, a new feature we're bringing into the show is every week, Steve and I are going to select an individual beer that we're going to taste during the course of the next week. And so next week we're going to review a particular beer, which we'll reveal to you at the end of this show. So as well as having the main review, this week being Bengal Lancer, we're also going to have short individual reviews of other beers, mainly because Steve and I are somewhat tied to what we can both get locally. We don't live near each other. We live 100 miles away from each other. But just the availability in our local supermarkets or wherever differs because of where we are. So we do have some commonality in what we can buy, but other bits that he can pick up and that I can pick up which differ. So we're going to have that as a little bit of way of getting some extra beers in rather than just what you can get off the shelf in Tesco's. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show and tell you what we're drinking this week to be reviewed next week. But this week's featured beer from the Fullers Brewery in Chiswick, Bengal Lancer, which is a bottle-conditioned India Pale Ale. Now, Steve, you told me to make sure this was only cool.
Yep.
So I did have it in the fridge, but I took it out a few hours ago. So it is a nice cool bottle now. Mm-hmm. It's 5.3% in the bottle, ABV. Now tell me why you're telling me something else about this as far as it being bottle conditioned. I have to pour it slowly or something you were saying? Explain that to me, mate.
Yeah, it's bottle conditioned because there's still live yeast in the bottle. So basically the flavour keeps on developing once it's been bottled and it's put out to sell. So you've got bits of live yeast floating around in there, and the smaller the brewery that you purchase your beer from, the bigger the lumps of yeast are likely to be in a bottle conditioned ale, because the bottle conditioned ales are what Camera actually, that they term them as being real ale in a bottle. So they're basically as close as you're going to get in a bottle to what you'd get in a pump in a pub. So that it's got live yeast in there, and what I suggested to you was that you poured it very, very slowly and just left a small amount of beer in the bottom of the bottle. And the reason for that is because if you was to pour it all in one go, you'd upset the yeast for a start, and you'd probably just end up with a great big head rather than a decent beer with a nice head. But also you're likely to get a few little bits of sediment and yeast floating around in your beer, which isn't the nicest of things to drink. So that's what when you see a beer that says bottle conditioned, that's essentially what it is. It's got live yeast in it, and it's still fermenting and it's still flavouring until the minute you open it and pour it.
Okay, well, there's no fear of me pouring it all out because I still haven't got a proper pint glass. I was looking on the Fuller's website earlier, and they have a shop where you can go and buy some glassware, so I might make the journey to Chiswick one day. It's only over the river. And get myself a decent glass. But until then, I'm going to start pouring this now, ever so slowly.
And I also suggested serving it cool, because I thought what we might start doing is, with the ongoing cold or warm debate, is actually seeing what the label suggests. So this particular label said that it's best served cool. So I've had mine in the fridge for about 2 hours because I thought that would be an adequate amount of time to cool it down, and it has come out at what I would call probably the sort of temperature you'd expect to get it out of a pump in a pub. Okay. So it's going down quite nicely tonight.
It's got a lovely colour to it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful dark golden sort of rusty colour.
Yeah, and that smell of it, Now, compared to last week's Black Sheep Ale,
Yep.
which was from what I remember, and tell me if I'm getting the terms wrong, it was quite hoppy, plain bitter.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you could smell the hops and you got the character from it as soon as you open the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
This one's got I'm thinking it's a very rounded taste, very rounded smell to it.
Yeah. You get your hops straight away, and that comes through in the flavour as well. So the first thing when you take your first sip, you're going to get literally smacked in the mouth by a handful of hops, and that will linger for a bit as well. And it's probably what you'd call going by past experiences. It's probably what you'd call more of the bitter taste, but in this instance, it's not. It's the hops that you're tasting.
Okay, well, let's give it a go. Yeah, that's interesting. It's not as flat on the taste buds on the taste buds as last week's.
Yeah, it's full of flavour, isn't it? There's loads of flavour there.
I'm not quite sure what the flavours are though. What are you tasting in it?
I'm gonna have another go and have a little sip and tell you what I think. I think, like I say, you're getting the hops.
Yep.
Getting the hops straight away in there. You're getting some of the malt in there as well, but it's not as prominent as it has been in the past.
No,
it's almost in the background, the flavour of the malts that are coming through. I think all the flavour here is just coming from the hops in this beer. It's a very hopped beer.
it's quite a spicy. I'm thinking like a spicy, fruity, not fruit as in like the Golden Glory, obviously, but it's got that kind of.
I'm not getting a lot of fruit from it. If I'm
maybe fruit isn't the proper. I don't know.
I'm just letting it sit on my tongue for a little bit there, just to see if the flavour changes. I think some of the spiciness that you're getting is probably coming through from the hops, and it's probably enhanced a little bit by, as I say, the live yeast that's been in the bottle as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, because there's live yeast in the bottle, it's quite possible that we're actually, although we're drinking the same beer, that they're probably different flavours.
Yeah.
Because they may have been bottled at different times, they may have been stored differently. I poured mine before we started the podcast. You've only just poured yours. There's not very much left in my glass. There's probably quite a bit left in your glass, and I think all those things
really.
probably are probably adding to your flavour. So I think it's going to be quite difficult for us when we do the bottle conditioned ales, probably to come up with a taste. But like I say, for me, this one is very. The hops are prominent in there. That's the thing that comes through first. Then you get a little bit of the malt and a little bit of the spices as well coming through.
Yeah, there's definite character in there. You can tell that from the first smell of it before you even tasted it. I suppose this is what you should expect from. It's not their run-of-the-mill beer. This is it, Fullers.
It's not, and if I'm completely honest, this is the first time I've ever had the Bengal Lancer. I've not had it before, and it's actually a very nice beer. I would drink this again. I'm really beginning to favour the IPAs at the moment, because I think as maybe as I'm maturing, my taste buds are, and I'm wanting that strong hoppy flavour coming through in the beers.
Yeah, so let's go back, because the first IPA we did was the Green King one.
Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah.
But you told me then, because I asked you what made an IPA, and
Yes.
you're telling me how it's the extra hops to make sure that it would survive the journey to India.
Traditionally,
back in the day.
Yeah.
So that's generally what we're looking for in an IPA, is a very hoppy beer.
It is a very hoppy beer, and I think
that's one of the characteristics of an IPA, is a very hoppy beer, right?
Yeah, yes, and that's exactly what it's designed to do. It's all about the hops, and you mentioned earlier that either you've got or have you sampled the Punk IPA yet?
Not yet, no.
That's an immensely strong hoppy flavour.
Right.
I've tried that a couple of times, and I've never really been that taken by it because I think it's almost overpowered by hops. But I'm willing to give it a try again at some point. But there are some, if you have a look around the net, and I know we've both been looking at various websites where we can get some beer. There was one I was looking at the other day that it's a massive IPA. It's something like it's 40 quid for a bottle of this beer.
What?
And it's about 80%. I'll have to I'll see if I can find the name of it while we're on and describe that one to you.
It wasn't a vodka IPA or something, was it?
No, it's something just ridiculous. We'll carry on talking about this, and I'll search for that one, and I'll describe it to you before the end of the end of the podcast tonight. But no, I'm enjoying this actually. I would like this, and I think the thing about the India Pale Ales is you mentioned there's a spiciness in there. Traditionally, they go very well with spicy foods as well, so they go well with Indians, Chinese, is that sort of thing, because the spice actually works well with the flavours of the food.
Mm-hmm. Considering I'm just finishing off a stir fry at the moment, this is like the perfect beer to go with that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But there's one coming out in a couple of weeks that I'm quite excited about. I think we tweeted today about the Sainsbury's Great British Beer Hunt that starts next week.
Yep.
That they've got a Harvestone Wild Hop Gold coming out as part of that, and I've been after trying that because I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, by the way, if you're listening, but Harvestone or Harvest Town, I suppose, from an English point of view, they're one of kind of my favourite breweries. Again, one of the ones that I've sampled quite a few beers from, and I'm quite looking forward to their wild hop beer that they're putting out as part of the Great British Beer Hunt. That starts next week in Sainsbury's.
Okay, so you're a bit of a hops fan.
I am at the moment, yeah, and I think that's just because, and again, probably where we're going with this podcast as well. You know, I'm getting a bit fed up with what's commercially available in your local supermarkets, and I'm wanting to expand my horizons and tastes and that sort of thing. And IPAs are the way to go, I think.
Right.
Okay, so this I found this beer. It's by Brewdog, who do the Punk IPA.
Yeah.
It's called Sink the Bismarck.
Okay.
And it's an Imperial double IPA. The price for a bottle is $39.99. It's only 330 mils, and it's 41%.
Oh, are these the guys that were in the news about having having the strongest beer commercially available? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And looking down their stuff, they're you know, I mean the Punk IPA is like 4%.
Yeah. And it's only a little bottle as well, thankfully.
It's only a tiny bottle, yeah. Yeah. No, sorry, I'll take that back. The Punk IPA is 6%.
Holy shit! I've got 3 of them.
Yeah, you might want to take your time with those.
I think I'm gonna have just a couple of those, you know, while watching TV on a Friday night. But I might not see Saturday at that rate.
No, I wouldn't. I'd take it very easy with that if I was you.
Well, it does say on the back of the bottle they don't really give a shit if you like it or not. That's basically what they say. That's
it. And, you know, among a lot of the beer aficionados on Twitter, that they are a very well thought of brewery. I've tried a couple of their beers now. I've tried the Brewdog, and I've tried I think it's 5am Saint that they do as well, that are commercially available. And I didn't really get on with either of them. But I may just need to revisit them again and give them another try.
Yeah, this beer has still got its taste going.
Now, I've just taken a good swig there. I'm closing in on the end of my pint, but I've got a nice sweet flavour coming through now from that last swig. almost sort of caramelly, sort of maltiness.
Mm-hmm. I will say, one of the first proper ale that I had when I first decided I was going to get into this, following your example and our mate Andy's example, i.e. you guys drinking a lot.
Not a good thing. Drink responsibly.
Yeah. I think the second beer I had was one from Castle Rock, which was called a Harvest Pail.
Okay.
I bought it on the Isle of Wight. I don't know where it's from, but this is what this kind of reminds me of. Now, granted, back then I was very new to it, so the beers were strong to me. I think that I had that one not long after I had a Hobgoblin, which is itself, a decent tasting beer.
Yeah.
But this is reminding me of that. And, it's kind of a step up from what we've had so far. I mean, that's not saying much, considering we've had Black Sheep and we've had Green King IPA in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for it to be from what is, I consider, a major brewery, I don't know if they're major within the UK sense, but they're definitely in London. They're a major brewery.
No. I think Fullers are a major brewery.
But for them to put out something, this has character, I think.
Yeah.
To my taste buds, anyway.
Yeah, it's a very unique flavour to it. I think I mentioned to you earlier on in the week when we first spoke about maybe doing a Fuller's this week. I think I said that I've never really taken to London Pride. I find it a little bit bland and a little bit run of the mill, but some of the other stuff that they do, I mean, these are the guys that are responsible for the brewers reserves that they put out at the Great British Beer Festival. They've got a strong tradition of brewing, and that they do a lot of other beers what don't end up in bottles as well, but that you can buy from pubs.
Okay.
So you're fairly limited to their bottle collection. I think you can get about 6 or something from their main range, and then they put out a vintage ale every year as well.
Yeah.
Which is normally up there around the 8.5%, 9% again, and they put out their Brewers Reserve as well. So they're a very, very well thought of brewery.
Yeah. Funny story. When the first time I ever came to London, because I am from Australia originally, and I was brought over because I was working for a UK company, and they brought me over, and I was staying in Chiswick.
Oh, okay.
I would walk from Chiswick to what's the name of the tube station? Something Green. Anyway, there's a tube station near there. It's not Chiswick Station. It's a something Green station. But my walk, which was along London Road, was past Fuller's Brewery.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So, but I didn't know what Fuller's was at first. I just saw this Fuller's Chiswick with a little griffin on top. And it took a few days before I realised it was actually a brewery. But yeah, that was one of my earliest memories of coming to London and seeing this Fuller's. I didn't realise just how big they were. Because a little further away was a pub, which was a Fuller's pub, obviously. So I didn't know if they were just a Chiswick thing. I didn't know how things worked in London, being from the sticks over in Australia. But yeah, so full circle after 12 years or something. That's one of my earliest memories of coming to London was the Fuller's Brewery.
Yeah, I mean they've got quite a few pubs in London. They seem to have a lot of pubs located at the main stations as well. So there's the one that I frequent at King's Cross, the Parcel Yard, and then they've got the Doric Arch at Euston, and they've got the Mad Hatter and Bear at Paddington. So they've done very well in the placement of some of their branded bars, if you want to term them as that.
Yeah. Just to round off the beer talk this week before we get into our farewells and our weekly assignments, if you want to call it that. You mentioned before we started recording that you had found some information to explain to me what the whole difference is between various types of ale, golden ales and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a few minutes to enlighten me?
I can, and to enlighten our listeners that aren't aware of this, I think you asked me the question the other week of what is it that makes a golden ale, And my response was, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, they just look more like lager. Well, following that, I was reading through the Great British Beer Festival program, and there was a page in there that is called Beer Styles, and it describes the different styles of beer that are available and how Camera actually rate the beers and term them as different beers. So you've got 6 main categories. Your first one is your bitters, and they are essentially they're saying that they're highly hopped beers, and that they generally come out in a deeper bronze to copper color, and generally have a range in their alcohol content, and they were originally developed in the 19th century, that could be served in pubs quickly, so they only need to be stored in the cellar for a few days in their casks. So that's your standard bitter. Then you've got your milds, which are generally a lot rounder, they're slightly sweeter, and have a distinctly less bitter taste on the palate, and you get more of the other aromas coming through rather than hops. You've then got your porters, which you're beginning to get into a darker beer with your porter, and they are generally beers that are, again, they're quite hoppy, but they're made with roasted barley, and that creates the darker flavour, and they'll give you more of your chocolate and your coffee sort of flavours that are coming through there. Then you've got your stouts. And again, they're very, very dark, quite heavy in their consistency, well hopped, creamy head, and again made by dark roasted barleys. You've then got your golden ales, which are your pale and amber ones. Gold, the ones that we've done a few golden ales now. Yep. They're quite refreshing, quite lagery, and have not just your malt flavours, but they also have maybe some fruit flavours coming through. And then the final category is basically what we've been drinking tonight, which is your bottle conditioned beer, which is your real ale in a bottle, which is, as we were saying earlier, it's as close as you're going to get to drinking beer from a pump.
Yeah.
So those are your 6 beer styles according to Camera. I would probably add to that, between your bitter and your mild, you've got your kind of ruby beers as well. So you've got your likes of your Hobgoblin and those sorts of things that sit. I wouldn't really class them as a porter necessarily, but I wouldn't class them as a bitter either.
Yeah.
So, but that's, as I say, that's according to Camera. That's how they basically label their beers into 6 categories.
Cool. Okay, that's really interesting. So let's wind down this week's review of our Bengal Lancer. We haven't done this. We haven't done this every week, but I think this week we need some consistency. So let's give this a rating, mate.
Okay.
We have rated a few beers in the past. We didn't rate last week's Black Sheep Ale, but then again, you can't say we rated it at all.
No, I don't think it was rated.
I think that was definitely in the mid to low numbers, that one.
Yeah.
But how would you rate Bengal Lancer on a scale of 1 to 10?
I would give this. I think I'd give this an 8.
Okay.
Because I like the flavour. I like the strength in the hoppiness. And I like the fact that you do on the first few sips you do get that smack in the mouth with the hops, and it really worked for me. Really enjoyed it. Really nice beer. Easily an 8.
Okay. I would probably give this at this stage a 7. It is very nice. I'm not quite sure what I'm tasting. There is something there, but I can't put my tongue on it. It's definitely different from what we've drunk before, and unlike some of the other beers, the bitterness or the hoppiness is still there. I can still get that kick in my mouth every sip I take, which with previous beers I've kind of eased into it by the end of the bottle, and I'm used to it. But no, that kind of spiciness, that bitterness is still there, which is really nice. Then I'm still getting the character after I've drunk almost an entire bottle.
That might be from the live yeast that's in there.
Yeah.
Might be keeping those flavours alive in every sip.
So that's really nice that I'm getting, the full whack from the full bottle rather than eased into it, end of the bottle. It's just another beer now type feeling that I've had from a couple of others in the past. That rating might go up once I realise what I'm actually tasting. But over the course of this show, I'm hoping that I'll be able to pick out those particular tastes, sensations. But yeah, it's got definite character to it. I really enjoy this.
It's certainly one that I could quite easily open another bottle now, even on a Tuesday night, on a school night, and do another one.
Yeah, I don't know if I could drink this all night though. It might have a bit too much character for me.
Yeah. Might leave you a bit of a thumping head tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I might need to go into another Golden Glory after this. If I was to keep going, which thankfully I'm not, because it is a Tuesday that we're recording this. Right, that's the end of this week's review. Bengal Lancer, we got an 8 from Steve, a 7 from me. Well done, Fullers. You've passed the test. Now for our weekly assignments. We're each choosing a beer that we're going to drink sometime in the next 7 days, and we're going to report back when we record episode 7 next week. Steve, what is your selection that you're going to have for us next week, that you're drinking this week?
I am going to go for probably one of my favourite beers. I mentioned the brewery earlier, and again, apologies if I pronounce it wrong, but it's the Harvestone Brewery, based up in Scotland, and it's their brew called Bitter and Twisted, which, as I say, is it's up there as one of my favourite top 2 or 3 beers. So I'm going to quite happily enjoy one of those and report back on that next week.
Very nice. I'm going to play it a little bit safe by going with a known brand, or at least known to the general listenership, and also because I've got a bloody shelf full of them. I'm going to go for a Badger's Thirsty Ferret, which one of our listeners keeps banging on about.
Thirsty Ferret's a lovely beer.
Is it?
It is a lovely beer, yeah.
I love the names these guys have on their beers. I love the labels, and I also love the little chart they have on the back telling you what you should expect to see, smell, and taste.
Yes, so that is called something. Hang on, it's on the back of the piece of paper that I was just reading off of about the beer styles.
Right.
It's called Cyclops, and there's a website called cyclopsbeer.co.uk, and there are about 1,300 beers at the moment that have been rated in that way.
Oh, right.
In the see, smell, taste way. But I think Badgers are one of the first to actually put it on their labels.
Oh, well, I'm going to check that out. Cyclopsbeers.co.uk.
www.cyclopsbeer.co.uk. You can go into that, type in the beer that you're drinking, and it should give you the see, smell, and taste. So, hey, you never know, it might be worth us doing that before the show each week, just to see what Cyclops
Well, I'm going to do that too. Right now, while we're recording, I'm going to do that too.
Okay,
this Bengal Lancer.
Yeah, see if it's got that in there and see what it says. Because you might be able to find that flavour you're searching for.
Exactly, that's my idea.
Yeah.
Oh, no beer's matched. Buggers. Let's have a look by brewery. This is fascinating radio.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least it's not Get Drunk with Mark anymore.
Yeah. No, they've got Black Cab, Chiswick, Discovery, ESB, HSB, London Pride. Oh, they don't have the Bengal Lancer. That's a shame. I'm going to have to listen to some reviews. I was watching like I told you before, I was watching a review earlier of this one, and the reviewer was just saying, yeah, it's a nice beer. Yep, there's hops there. I'm thinking, okay, I know there's going to be hops there because it's a beer. What else are you tasting? Give me a hint of what I should expect to taste. Never mind. It's mysterious. There's something there, mate. I know it. I just don't know what it is.
Maybe that should be one of our missions for this week, should we choose to accept it. What's and let's put it out to the listeners. What's the flavour that Mark's tasting in Bengal Lancer?
What is it? Explain it to me.
Answers in a tweet to @BeerO'ClockShow.
Yeah, please. I might just email Fullers and saying I've tasted one of your Bengal Lancers and I don't know what it is I'm tasting.
I'm sure if you email if you tweet @Fullers Tony or @Fullers John, one of those guys will let you know what the taste is that you're drinking there.
Yeah. What is it I'm tasting, and can you send me a case so I can practice?
Yeah, why not?
I'm sure that'll go over well.
Yeah.
Right, so next week we're going to be talking about another beer, which hasn't been decided yet, but also our individual assignments, which is the Thirsty Ferret from Badgers and the... What's your one again, mate? From
Bitter and Twisted from Harvestoon.
Bitter and Twisted from Harvestoon. So stay tuned for that. Look at our Twitter. You can see Steve @MentalBentos. You can see me @Roku, ROKKU. Follow the show @BeerO'ClockShow. The website is beeroclockshow.co.uk, and email us your thoughts at beeroclockshow@gmail.com. Thanks very much. Join us next week for some random review which we haven't decided yet, but it's going to be interesting, I'm sure. Thanks very much, Steve. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, guys.